Welcome to the JP podcast. I'm your host, John, and I wanted to give a spoiler alert. If you're not caught up on any of the Marvel stuff, anything from Hawkeye all the way up to Thor, do not watch. We're going to give some stuff away. We're going to get in depth. I actually have Eric who's coming on next, and we're going to talk about everything that's been going on since we last talked to him in the other shows. So hope you enjoy the show. Well, welcome back to the show, Eric. I'm very happy to have you, and thank you for giving us some of your time.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, we have had a lot go on since we've had you on the last show. Actually, you and I were talking before we got going, and just double checking, making sure we had all the shows down packed. And I know one of them was Hawkeye. Now, I don't really know or remember if we had talked about that, but Hawkeye, I actually liked the show, and it was pretty good, but they weren't getting into any of the multiverse, is what I'm seeing from the rest of the shows then on are getting into.
Yeah, so the only really thing Hawkeye kind of did is they brought in Kate Bishop, who will become the new Hawkeye. One of the Easter eggs in there is the college that she went to was Stane Hall, and Jebediah Stane was, the guy that played in the first Iron Man. He was the one that was trying to take over Tony's business. His son has a lot to do with Kate Bishop. He's a main villain of her, main villain of Iron Man. So they kind of threw that little Easter egg in there. They brought in Kingpin, which a lot of people didn't like his whole outfit and everything like that, but who knows where they're going to go with that. So I think that they're all leading up, that's leading up to a Young Avengers type movie.
Okay. Yeah, I'm starting to learn about the Young Avengers now. I actually watched some podcasts on Marvel characters, and I'm learning, and then I of course end up calling you, and then I say, hey, let's do a show. I don't remember if Loki was out yet. Maybe it was, but now Loki started to get into the multiverse, right?
He was the full plunge into the multiverse. They introduced Kang he who remains is Kang the Conqueror, and he's going to be one of the next villains or people that it's going to be an Avengers event to deal with him. Or Fantastic Four, because he's a distant relative of Reed Richards from the Fantastic Four. So they're going to go you're going to see a bunch of different variants. I just watched something about the new season, and they're talking about how you're probably going to see a bunch of different variants of Kang the Conqueror. And they hinted that none of the variants of Loki are going to be around, but I believe that the young version of Loki is probably going to stay within the Marvel Universe because a lot of people liked that version of him. So who knows?
Yeah, they were, you and I were talking, they kind of hinted a little bit at this multiverse in probably the end game. I'm trying to remember if they hint at it at all before that, but no, I think when they went to Tony Stark saying we need to go back in time, that's when he mentioned a little bit about it.
It was more when the Hawk went to find the Ancient One, and when she knocked him out of his body and brought him back, then she explained that if you take the time stone from this point, it's going to cause a branch, and they were saying, well, we have to return them back to where we found them. So she kind of was like, hey, you could alter the timeline or reality. But I think the first big bump in it was probably the Spider-Man, where you had all three Tobey, like all three Spider-Men. Each one of them had a villain that they faced. We hadn't talked about that the last time, but that because you don't like to watch movies in a theater, so you wait till they come out on so you can see them.
Yeah.
So I mean that was incredible as like being not just a comic book fan, but being like liking the Spider-Man movies, to see all 3 Spider-Mans on the screen.
Yes, I totally agree. I loved it. I loved every bit of it, and I'm starting to get it now. But I think going to Spider-Man, we have to go back a little bit and talk about the Eternals. Am I right about that?
Well, yeah. So the Eternals was out, I think, probably before Spider-Man. You haven't watched that one. So the Eternals is setting up a different portion of the next couple movies, because now you have Celestials, and you have a bunch of different characters that have been here for the whole time, and everybody's like, well, why didn't you do anything when Thanos, snapped his fingers? And they kind of answered that a little bit. That movie kind of set up, I believe, the next phase in Marvel, where they're going to do like Midnight Suns, where it's going to be like more supernatural. Because at the end of the movie, you had Kit Harington, who was the Black Knight, getting ready to touch his sword, and then you heard a voice asking him, "Are you sure you want to do that?" Well, that was Blade that was asking him, "Hey, are you sure you want to do that?" So he's going to be tied up probably with the Midnight Suns, because they're going to have to introduce other characters, because other characters were involved. Blade was in there. The Black Knight, not so much at first, but you had Ghost Rider, a bunch of different versions of Johnny Blaze. You had a bunch of different versions. They were kind of head up by Doctor Strange, and they were like you're going to handle the occult stuff, the magic stuff, because, we have other issues that we have to worry about. So they're kind of like the Illuminati. They fight off in their own little section of the Marvel world. So I think they're gonna take that one way, and then eventually, I hope they tie it all back in, because you have a lot of big things that are gonna be coming up, and it's gonna be years before we see them. But more and more stories that I hear coming out, I'm like, oh, that's how they're gonna do that, and that's how they're gonna do this, and so like Black Panther 2. They just released on the radio on the YouTube a while ago that they are not going to replace the Black Panther. So the only thing that they can do is, well, in the comic books, Shuri becomes the Black Panther, but she can't really do it. So she becomes a character called Claws, and she kind of helps, but she's more in the tech in the background. But I think what they're probably going to end up doing is, they already said that M'Baku is not going to be the leader of, the Black Panthers, because he has his own clan that he's running, that he's taking care of. So what I think is that they're going to bring in to effect that he has a son that they just hadn't mentioned yet. So later in the story, he does have a child with Storm, who is from Africa, and that's where she was found. And from what I hear in the new Shuri Disney Plus show, that they're hinting that Riri Williams is going to be in there. She basically is a super smart girl. She's not doesn't take Iron Man's place, but she acquires his suits that have been lost in battle, pieces here and there, and she goes to MIT, which Peter Parker's friends are now going to MIT, so they're going to all be tied in there. But I heard one of the villains that they're going to have is Namor, and from Atlantis. In the comics, Black Panthers and them were always fighting. They always had a disagreement. And I think they're probably going to do it kind of like they did when they brought the Black Panther in, where parents get killed, Namor gets thrown into the. He's not a bad guy in the comic books. He's kind of just like T'Challa is, and he wants Atlantis for Atlantis and not outsiders. So the way that they're going and introducing all these Disney Plus shows, it's very interesting to watch, especially as being a comic book lover. You get to see that oh, it was like I would have loved these movies when I was a kid. So like now, kids that don't really read the comic books, they watch the movies, and then it gets them into maybe read a comic book here or there and get different stories, because every character has different storylines and different arcs and things like that. So it's hopefully these movies are just going to keep on writing themselves and just creating box office blast that we for a while. I don't see anything else taking their place.
Now you don't see it's not going to fully go the multiverse. They're still going to stay with some stories here and just say in our universe, which is what, 616.
Yeah, I mean they're gonna. That's the main continuity of. So like the other continuity, I think is like 614. It's called the Ultimate, because like when the comic book started writing like the Ultimate Fantastic Four, the Ultimate X-Men, that was basically from that universe, different variations. I believe that they probably could go back and forth, and all it takes is just a little word at the bottom that says 616 or 614, or whatever multiverse, whatever universe they're in, they could just put it at the bottom.
So even though they were touching it, as far as the multiverse in Loki, you really got to see the full effect is when you get into Spider-Man. When you
you got to see, hey, this is where they're going, because then now they can explain the Sony Spider-Mans, which really they were very good, but then that helped them say, hey, these other movies are they're the same characters played by different people, but it's a different universe,
right?
So it's like that's how they're gonna kind of explain a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. I believe that's kind of how they're gonna somehow bring mutants around, to where I think one of the next story arc that they're working on is probably Secret Wars. Mm-hmm. And in Secret Wars, you had a bunch of different superheroes, a bunch of different villains thrown into Battle World, and they fought, So I think that's what how they're gonna say, hey, from 616, this is this X-Man, or this, this bad guy. They're gonna bring characters that we haven't been introduced to yet, and then you're gonna find out that maybe or maybe not that it's gonna be the same character in this universe.
All right, so going back to Spider-Man there, I actually loved the movie. I love the way that they showed the different characters. And at first, mm-hmm. when it was coming out, I was like, I don't know how I felt about the movie. But as I got more and more into it, I realized what they were doing, and I absolutely loved it. Now, my question to you is, as far as the Avengers, which ones besides Doctor Strange deal with these multiverse? Or is it just Doctor Strange? Or could it be... like when we get into the second movie, we talk about Wanda.
Yeah, I think the way that they're going to have it done is they're going to do multiple. Anybody can deal with issues of the multiverse.
Okay.
So I think that's how they are going to handle that. It is going to be a big issue, and they're going to have. That's going to be kind of their way to bring in anything. Oh, it's a multiverse. Oh, it's a variant. Oh, and that's going to be their go-to thing. Easiest way to explain it, because now they've done it, so it's going to happen. The only thing that you're going to like in the Doctor Strange 2, they mentioned that America Chavez isn't in any other of these. She's not in any other universes. So she's special to her universe that she was in. So she's going to play a big part in taking over some of the story arc. She's going to probably become the new Captain America.
Oh, okay.
Her powers are kind of, however they want to say it, because like technically she could cut holes through time and space and stuff like that. So in herself, she's like kind of a unique, powerful being. So I think that's how they're gonna do anything. So like in the Doctor Strange movie, the porthole that Reed Richards came in on, that's actually technology that Doctor Doom created.
Okay.
So it's just one of those things that it is an Easter egg for another character. And in Battleworld Secret Wars, Doctor Doom played a very good part in that, a big part of that that comic. So I mean, they're gonna be introducing people here probably left and right in different ways to where you're gonna like, wow,
So actually, we probably will see Robert Downey Jr. back as Iron Man, but maybe a different version of him.
I believe that he's eventually. I mean, he says it kind of cheapens how he died in the Endgame, but then again, I mean, if the movies start not making so much,
they're gonna have.
And they're gonna. Yeah. I mean, they're gonna. I suspect he may be back in hologram form before he is back as his like Robert Downey Jr. I think that they may. I mean, I heard Tom Cruise was supposed to be in Doctor Strange 2. He was supposed to play a different version of Iron Man, and he plays the version that Iron Man would have became if he didn't have the Avengers. Because in one of the first Iron Man movies, when he was dealing with the Avengers, he told them, I see a world that has a suit of armor built around it. And so basically that is the immortal Iron Man. And that's what he did. He created suits that are everywhere around the earth. And if something happens, they can drop in and immediately handle whatever it is. It's like I want to see Love and Thunder here real soon, because I think that's going to have some impact on what's going on next. Because I mean, Chris Evans, I think, is doing one more movie as Captain America. So you're probably going to see maybe one or two more movies with Chris Hemsworth, maybe more. Because I mean, if that's all he's doing and he's just making money. So yeah, I mean, they're going to have to introduce new people. And then once they get X-Men and Avengers and everything, like a whole bunch of different villains introduced, you could have them do one-off movies, where they don't have to have like a 3-movie story arc to introduce a bad guy.
Yes. Now going back to Doctor Strange, the second one, it appeared to me that Wanda, I didn't realize Scarlet Witch is, she appeared to be like one of the most powerful ones out there.
Yeah. So, I mean, she's above Omega level, but mutants. But in this version of Wanda, they're not technically calling her a mutant. So that's why there were scenes from Doctor Strange 2 that were cut that she filmed with Michael Fassbender playing Magneto, and because in that reality he was their father. So I think they're not gonna go that way. Now they're calling that she has chaos magic, and so one of the things that they do with that in the comics is Rogue. Eventually, she's not Rogue. Storm is not a mutant. She's basically a god, and she's on that same level. So like her levels, her power now are just so crazy that because she can alter reality. And once you get into characters like that, there's characters that can beat her, but you got to dumb down their powers in order to that happening.
Yeah, because in Doctor Strange, she meets up with Charles Xavier, and he's nothing compared to her powers, you know. And
Yeah.
I was loving Doctor Strange, you know, the second.
Yeah, that scene where they introduced, you know, Inhumans, the different Captain America, the different Ms. Marvel, and all that. It was like, that was crazy for like the 3 minutes that the scene took place. It was like, oh yeah, and then it's like, boom.
You know, but that was from What If, though, right? A lot of that.
Well, no, I mean, because the Inhumans are, you know, they're from this reality or whatever. They just introduced really quick, because they had already introduced the Inhumans in the TV show, so we knew who they were. So the different.
What are Inhumans? I'm lost.
So
there.
like, you know, Thunder, or was it Thunderbolt? The one that couldn't talk.
Yeah.
She made his mouth and he blew his brains out.
Yeah.
So they are a different form of humans that have been altered, and they stay separate. You know, they're not considered mutants. They are inhuman.
Okay.
So and he is the leader and the king of the Inhumans. Okay. So they had a TV show. Originally they had a TV show that played after Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on, you know, and it didn't do real good because a lot of people couldn't get into it, but there's some bad characters that are in that, you know, like Thunderbolt is a pretty bad character. I mean, because he can't talk, because just a whisper will destroy almost everything. You know, so he's another one that they would have to dumb down his powers. From in the Inhumans, one of my favorite characters was Karnak, and he was just a good fighter, but he had the ability to see whoever he was fighting, their weak point, or the weak point in a building, to where he can just touch it and the building would crumble. So he had the ability to find out what was your weakest point and how to attack it. And it was pretty good.
So they also introduced a little bit of the Illuminati, right?
Yeah, so the Illuminati was, you know, it was Reed Richards, T'Challa, you had Doctor Strange, and they were kind of in the background of, we're keeping an eye on events that nobody else can see. And they're their own little thing, and it was okay. I mean, their storylines weren't all that great, but they're a way to explain certain things in the comics. Okay.
So what are you picking up from all these shows that you're going to predict what's coming up? You mentioned the Secret Wars.
So yeah, so the Secret Wars, I see that. I mean, it's hard to pick one out, because you don't really know exactly if they're tying all of these movies together or not, and I don't think they will. I think that you'll see a straight story that has just the occult in it, like Moon Knight and all of that, dealing with magic and gods. And even now in the new Thor Love and Thunder movie, they actually are introducing all these other gods, different
that were from Moon Knight.
No, that were from, like, just different gods.
Okay.
So there's more than the gods that, you know, Thor and all that, and Odin. So you have Zeus and the entire Olympian gods, and then you have all these other different gods of Earth. Like, they actually are going to introduce Bast, who is the god that the Black Panther and his group, kind of, that's their god. Okay. So they kind of touched some of that in Moonlight, where they showed different gods, and that's where I think that Thor is going through, because you're introducing a character that is pretty powerful. You know, Gore the God Butcher he's pretty powerful. He's a pretty powerful character, and I hope they don't use him just in one movie and just say, hey, this one movie and that's it.
Now,
because
we didn't touch a lot on Moon Knight. We skipped it. That one for me was a little hard to follow, not knowing anything. So I remember calling you and asking you a few questions because I was kind of lost on Moon Knight.
Yeah, Moon Knight is one of my favorite favorite characters. I actually use the name Mark Spector when I get tired of answering calls from like, solicitors about insurance or whatever. I'll tell them my name is Mark Spector, and I'll keep them on the phone for a while. So he's an awesome character. He's three people in one or more. They touched on his first two personalities. Then he has a third one, and he gets his power from Khonshu, who is another god. So Khonshu is the brother of Bast, who is the god that's worshipped in Wakanda. They're siblings, and so they're introducing a lot of different gods and all that. And in the comic books, the God Butcher is pretty powerful. It takes a lot to beat him. I don't think that they're going that way because he would be kind of really powerful if they made him that way. And then how he gets that powerful, they haven't really introduced that yet into the Marvel universe. Because once they go into his other background, you would have to have Venom fully in it, and they would have to tell us more about where Venom comes from and everything like that. So I think they're using a different storyline for how he came into power. Basically, he was on a planet and the people prayed for rain, and he watched everybody die. So then he decided that gods were useless, so he found out a way to kill them, and he killed some very powerful gods. And it was. I thought Moon Knight was great. I mean, there was some things that it was kind of okay, but I thought that they were going to have Ethan Hawke's character either be Deacon Frost, who created Blade, or he was going to be Dracula. So that's not what it turned out to be. So they're going to eventually have somebody else playing that role, one of those roles. Especially in Blade's movie. By the time they get to Blade, it'll be in there.
Yeah, I'm starting to see things on who they're trying to pick for Blade. For me, it's very entertaining and it's exciting, but I do get lost because I know there's more to it, and I turn to you. But someone like you who follows the comic books since you were 5 years old, you find this all to be entertaining? Does it have you on your toes?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I mean, I liked some of the changes that they're doing. Other changes, doesn't really matter because, like I said, every villain and hero has multiple different storylines. It all depends on who's writing the story. So, little changes here and there it's not a big deal. Even the biggest change with, the end game, the way that they made it in the movie was far better than it was in the comic book.
Oh, okay.
Because in the comic book, Thanos caused a lot of chaos, but Adam Warlock basically just beat him in like a second. And they were introducing him in one of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but they never got back around to it. So that's why they went that way, because they're like, it's probably going to be too hard to get this guy into our reality.
So now in the new Thor, he's still with Guardians of the Galaxy, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to be in there too.
I think at first, I think eventually he's going to have to go off on his own, because it's, he's probably going to be with Guardians of the Galaxy when that new movie comes out. But I know in the beginning of this movie, he's going to be with them. But I don't think that they're going to be in the movie for too long.
Okay.
because the main story is about him, all these new gods, Valkyrie, Jane Foster as Thor, and it's that's what it's all going to be about, is introducing different characters.
So real quick, this video will be coming out after Thor is already released, so we'll see how close predictions are to actual what the movie is. But my question is, are they rebuilding Asgard? Is that what's happening? I don't understand Thor. I thought he lost half his people before Thanos clicked his fingers.
So Asgard, well, all those people would come back.
Yeah, but he killed some in the ship, didn't he?
He did. So you'll have a lot of them coming back, but the ones that survived Ragnarok are now on Earth. They're in New Asgard, and that happens in the comic books. They come to Earth, and they are Midgard, and they are, that's where they are, and the city that you see in the movie is Olympias, where with Zeus and all them.
Okay.
So that's going to be the city that you see in that movie.
Did the same thing happen in the books as is in the movies, where at the end of Endgame he kind of gives her the royalty and then he takes off because he wants to go do other things?
Not really. I mean, that was just a kind of a way to write the story. I mean, he does stop being king for a while, and Thor has another brother that they haven't really introduced, and he was the one that in the comics kind of recreated Asgard in Midgard, because he's the older brother. They just haven't gone that down into that rabbit hole of his family tree yet. So I think that it's gonna be good the way that they're doing it, because like the whole way, like how I don't know how in this movie she's gonna become Thor, but I'm almost positive that it's probably gonna have to do with, remember when he went back to visit his mother and she was at that time starting to get sick. So in the comic books, she gets sick, and the more that she becomes, because Thor becomes unworthy, she becomes a new Thor. But being Thor, because she's a human, makes her sick. So the longer she's Thor, the sicker she gets, and so on and so on.
Who is she?
She, Lady Thor. She's Natalie Portman.
The girlfriend.
She's going to be she's going to be the Lady Thor, and it's kind of that's why it's kind of a love triangle, because her and him and Valkyrie, and it's going to be funny. I mean, it's definitely going to be hilarious.
I didn't think there was anything between him and Valkyrie.
Oh, there's a big, they have a kid together. I mean,
really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, them gods just spread their seed. They have kids with everybody.
I don't blame them.
I mean, Loki has a son that's a horse, and a son that's a sea monster. So
wow.
And a son that's a wolf. So jeez. I mean, they get around.
So you see all of this heading into Secret Wars. Is that what you had it going?
I think that's where they're going. See it going. I would like to see Thor going, because eventually, to beat Gore the God Butcher, he basically has to use 3 different versions of Thor to beat him. Which then, but in the comics, they had Thunderstorm, who became Thor for a while when Thor was banished, and then they had Beta Ray Bill. And so I think that they're going to have Lady Thor, and probably either Beta Ray Bill or a different version of Thor. somebody else playing.
Well,
To beat him.
for those who don't understand, Secret Wars. Explain it real quick. What Secret Wars is? This is going to be another big battle like Endgame, right?
The way the way it's going to go, it's like Kang the Conqueror is going to be running the Secret Wars, and he's going to basically be taking different heroes, villains, and whatever, and basically throwing them into kind of like Battle World, where in the Thor Ragnarok movie, where the Incredible Hulk was in the Battle World.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to kind of be like that, but so it's going to it's probably only going to be one movie, but who knows?
In that movie, that planet they were on, that character, is he a comic book character?
In which one?
Was it Ragnarok where the Hulk was in that battle stadium?
Yeah, so in that that is an actual battle world.
Okay.
So in one part of in one storyline, the Illuminati thought the Hulk was too powerful, so they basically put him on a jet out of here, and he crash landed on this planet. He basically was a gladiator, came into power, overthrow, because the Grandmaster was running it, and he basically took over that, had a son. That's where Scar comes from, and then even in that movie, one of the Easter eggs, when they showed the Battle World, Beta Ray Bill was one of the heads that was on top of the tower, so he was in there.
And who is that?
So Beta Ray Bill is when Thor. So a couple times in the comic books, Thor becomes unworthy in Odin's eyes. So he gave Mjolnir to help Beta Ray Bill because his planet was being destroyed. So then basically Thor becomes worthy again, and instead of taking a hammer from him, he saw that he was still worthy. So that's where they got that other hammer that they're using now. So now there's the two hammers. Mm-hmm. So that's where that one hammer, it was actually the hammer that was created for Beta Ray Bill.
Oh, wow. And you and I talked a little bit about the Red Hawk.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not Hulk. So tell me a little bit about that. I was very interested
in the comic books. Red Hawk was basically, he was General Thunderbolt, who was Betty Ross's husband. He's been the guy playing it in all the movies. He was in Captain America. He was, about the secret soldier form and everything. So in one of the Incredible Hulk movies, he goes into where they have the different variations of the super soldier formula, and they show the different tanks. He takes out the one that says Weapon H on it because it was a variation of the Hawk sample. So he gives it to himself, and instead of becoming the green, he becomes the Red Hawk. Since he has died, I do believe in the Thunderbolts movie that's going to be coming out, they're going to probably have the Abomination playing that big bad guy part of the team, because the Thunderbolts are kind of like Suicide Squad. They get that's where the what's her name, Elaine Dreyfus, the character that's going in Captain America, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. She was the one that recruited U.S. Agent at the end of that. She was the one that recruited the Black Widow sister. So she's collecting people to work for the government to do things that the Avengers can't or won't do. And that's so I think in the storylines, there's the newest Red Hulk is, he's an Asian kid, and I think they're going to eventually work him in as the person that is going to become the new Red Hulk, but they're not going to be there yet.
Same strength, same powers as the Hulk?
Pretty much same strength. I mean, but because the Hulk is directly affected by the gamma rays, that's why he gets stronger. as he goes. So there are really, at his high point, there really is no high limit of his power. The madder he gets, the stronger and angrier he gets. It's just becomes more powerful.
Yeah, I was very bummed to see him kind of wimp out against Thanos. I wanted to see the Hulk do some damage.
Everybody did, but since they couldn't really make a standalone Hulk film because Sony still owns the rights and all that. That's why they had like multiple different versions of the Hulk, Incredible Hulk, is because since they couldn't give him his own movie, they were subwriting his own story arc in there. So you've seen him go from being mad, and then in the end game where he didn't want to just come out when he had to fight somebody. Mm-hmm. He felt like, I'm my own person. Why are you trapping me in this body? Yeah. And then now that's why you have Professor Hulk, who is the smart Hulk, and that's kind of his story arc, that because there's different versions of the Hulk. When the Hulk first came out, he was gray. Mm-hmm. Now, he was only gray because it was cheaper to make him gray than green. Mm-hmm. when he came out. But when he was the Gray Hulk, he was kind of somewhat intelligent. He was a bodyguard. They called him Joe Fix-It. He was fighting with Wolverine before anything. Mm-hmm. Then as he went through, he became more and more different variations of the Hulk. And there's other people that are in the Hulk's storylines that they can't bring out because they don't own, Sony owns them. Wow. That's why you can't have the leader. You can't have the Hulk fight the leader or Mortis or Brigand Doc Savage or any of these other people that deal with the Hulk because they don't own them. Okay. I think eventually they will.
Well, I appreciate it, Eric. We're going to end it here because we can go on for hours and hours and hours. So, if you have any comments, please comment below, like and subscribe. We'll be putting all that up there. And Eric, like I said, you're welcome on every time or anytime. And, I just enjoy having you on because I could just listen to you talk for, that's why I've been blowing up your phone for the past week. Like, man, I want to get you on. I want to hear what you got to say about everything that's been going on.
Yep. Next time, let's do DC and what they're doing wrong and what they're doing right.
Yes, definitely. But I haven't noticed much on DC lately. There's been a couple things, but I wanted this one to be strictly Marvel, and we go from there. But we'll definitely do something on DC here shortly.
All right.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you guys later.
All right. Bye.